Would it be dreadful to see one's death in a dream? Yet that is what Enkidu experienced, and how devastating it must have been for a great warrior as he to know that it would not be in battle that he would see his end. Hello, I am Daisy, your hostess. If you are new to my channel and you found me at this video, welcome. You are joining us, yes indeed, the Fortune Forecast community, as we travel back in time circa 2700 BC or so. We've absconded with University of London's Assyriologist Andrew George, who has been thoughtful enough to translate these treasured tablets that have been discovered so that we can open a portal to ancient Mesopotamia through one of the oldest epic poems in history, the Epic of Gilgamesh. You may want to check my book library to grab the first few tablets. We'll be right here waiting for you. But before you go, I was remiss in rating the last video, which contained Tablet 6 titled Ishtar and the Bull of Heaven. Some may say that it could be rated X. The scene where Gilgamesh's beauty provokes the desire of the goddess Ishtar, and she proposes to him. Those goddesses were very open with their sexuality. She bluntly asked Gilgamesh to be her bridegroom and boldly asked him to grant her his fruits. But Gilgamesh scorns her. She was a fickle lover, and it seemed her love affairs were very well known. Probably kept the scribes busy. I wonder if they had gossip tablets. Like inquiring minds want to know. Anyway, Gilgamesh retold how with one of her lovers, Ishtar wanted to taste Ishulanu's vigor and asked him to put out his hand and stroke her quim. You can leave that to your imagination. I'm just reading ancient text here, translated by Andrew George. Now let's get out of the rated X tablets and into the archaeology side. If you are interested in the intricacy and the elaborate maze it is to piece these fragments together, mind you, notwithstanding the scholars that have chosen as a profession to learn ancient language, whether philology or linguist, as well as the cost to launch permits to excavate these sites, and not to mention dealing with clandestine tomb raiding and black market sales that undoubtedly happen in such an industry. It's a miracle that we are privileged to resuscitate these words, and I'm honored to share them with you. If this topic is an interest of yours, the book from which I am sharing is a must, titled The Epic of Gilgamesh, a New Translation, translated with an introduction by Andrew George. His detail is exquisite. He includes a discussion of the origins and locations of the various tablets, which I found quite interesting. It must be painstaking to travel to so many museums and private holders to put this puzzle of fragments together that has such an historic value. And lucky we have the internet. And it also has the appendix, which allows for another layer of appreciation, which is titled From Tablet to Translation. Right from the beginning, he shares that for most literary compositions in Sumerian and Akkadian, there's no ready-made established text, such as the series of Oxford classical texts provided for the Greek and the Latin literature. So he says that the translator must make his own, and he offers insight on how scholars come to some type of consensus. Either way, what a challenge. The theme of death and mortality is one that Gilgamesh is dealing with. He just buried his best friend, and is left with more questions than answer. The gods offer comfort by telling him he will now join the Inanna gods, the ancient deities, and meet those he had lost in life, including his dear friend Enkidu, and reminds him that no one truly dies as long as they're remembered by the living. With these somber words, we pick up the next tablet. Tablet 9. The Wanderings of Gilgamesh. In mourning for Enkidu, whose death has brought home to him his own mortality, Gilgamesh leaves Uruk to wander the earth in search of the immortal Utanapishti, whose secret he covets. Pressing on to the end of the world, he comes to the mountains where the sun sets and rises and asks the help of the scorpion man who guards the way under the mountains. Unable to convince Gilgamesh of the danger he courts, the scorpion man allows him to pass, and Gilgamesh races against time to complete the path of the sun before the sun can catch up with him. He reaches the far end of the tunnel just in time and finds himself in a garden of jewels. For his friend Enkidu, Gilgamesh did bitterly weep as he wandered the wild. I shall die, and shall I not then be as Enkidu? Sorrow has entered my heart. I am afraid of death, so I wander the wild to find Utanapishti, son of Ubar-Tutu. On the road traveling swiftly, I came one night to a mountain pass. I saw some lions and grew afraid. I lifted my head to the moon in prayer. To Sin, the lamp of the gods, went my supplications. O Sin, and keep me safe. That night he lay down, then woke from a dream. In the presence of the moon, he grew glad of life. He took up his axe in his hand. He drew forth the dirk from his belt. Like an arrow among them he fell. He smote the lions, he killed them and scattered them. The lacuna that intervenes here can be filled in part with text from an old Babylonian tablet reportedly from Sippar. He clad himself in their skins, he ate their flesh. Gilgamesh dug wells that never existed before. He drank the water as he chased the winds. Shamash grew worried, and bending down, he spoke to Gilgamesh. O Gilgamesh, where are you wandering? The life that you seek you will never find. Said Gilgamesh to him, to the hero Shamash. After roaming, wandering all through the wild, when I enter the netherworld, will rest be scarce? I shall lie there sleeping all down the years. Let my eyes see the sun and be sated with light. The darkness is hidden. How much light is there left? When may the dead see the rays of the sun? The text of Tablet 9 resumes. To Mashu's twin mountain he came, which daily guard the rising sun, whose tops support the fabric of heaven, whose base reaches down to the netherworld. There were scorpion men guarding its gate, whose terror was dread, whose glance was death, whose radiance was fearful, overwhelming the mountains. At sunrise and sunset they guarded the sun. Gilgamesh saw them. In fear and dread he covered his face. Then he collected his wits and drew nearer their presence. The scorpion man called to his mate. He who has come to us, flesh of the gods, is his body. The scorpion man's mate answered him. 2/3 of him is God, and 1/3 human. The scorpion man called out, saying a word to Gilgamesh, flesh of the gods. How did you come here, such a far road? How did you get here, to be in my presence? How did you cross the seas, whose passage is perilous? Let me learn of your journey. Where your face is turned, let me learn of your journey. When the text resumes after a lacuna, Gilgamesh is explaining his quest. I am seeking the road of my forefather Utanapishti, who attended the gods' assembly and found life eternal. Of death and life he shall tell me the secret. The scorpion man opened his mouth to speak, saying to Gilgamesh, Never before, O Gilgamesh, was there one like you. Never did anyone travel the path of the mountain. For 12 double hours its interior extends. The darkness is dense, and light is there none. For the rising of the sun, for the setting of the sun, for the setting of the... They sent forth. And you, how will you? Will you go in? After a long lacuna, the text resumes with the end of Gilgamesh's reply. Through sorrow, by frost and by sunshine, my face is burnt. Through exhaustion, now you. The Scorpion Man opened his mouth to speak, saying a word to Gilgamesh, flesh of the gods. Go, Gilgamesh. May the mountain of Mashu allow you to pass. May the mountains and hills watch over your going. Let them help you in safety to continue your journey. May the gate of the mountains open before you. Gilgamesh heard these words. What the Scorpion Man told him, he took to heart. He took the path of the sun god. At 1 double hour, the darkness was dense, and light was there none. It did not allow him to see behind him. At 2 double hours, the darkness was dense, and light was there none. It did not allow him to see behind him. At 3 double hours, the darkness was dense, and light was there none. It did not allow him to see behind him. At 4 double hours, the darkness was dense, and light was there none. It did not allow him to see behind him. At 5 double hours, the darkness was dense, and light was there none. It did not allow him to see behind him. On reaching 6 double hours, the darkness was dense, and light was there none. It did not allow him to see behind him. On reaching 7 double hours, the darkness was dense, and light was there none. It did not allow him to see behind him. At 8 double hours, he was hurrying. The darkness was dense, and light was there none. It did not allow him to see behind him. At 9 double hours, the north wind, his face. The darkness was dense, and light was there none. It did not allow him to see behind him. On reaching 10 double hours, was very near. On reaching 11 double hours, a journey remained of 1 double hour. At 12 double hours, Gilgamesh came out in advance of the sun. There was brilliance. He went straight as soon as he saw them to the trees of the gods. A carnelian tree was in fruit, hung with bunches of grapes, lovely to look on. A lapis lazuli tree bore foliage, in full fruit and gorgeous to gaze on. Cypress, cedar, its leaf stems were of parpadilu stone, and sea coral, sasu stone. Instead of thorns and briars, there grew stone vials. He touched a carob, it was abushmu stone, agate and hematite. As Gilgamesh walked about, she lifted her head in order to watch him. End of Tablet 9. The Epic of Gilgamesh, translated by Andrew George. Tablet 10, at the edge of the world. Beyond the garden, by the seashore, lives a wise old goddess. She spies a forbidding figure in the distance and, taking him to be a hunter, bars the door of her tavern. Gilgamesh hears her and threatens to break in. She asks who he is. He tells her how his friend has died and how much he now fears death, and he asks her aid in crossing the sea to find Utanapishti. She warns him of the futility of his quest and the dangers of the waters of death, but at length tells him where to find Utanapishti's ferryman, Ur-Shanabi, with his crew of stone ones. Gilgamesh rushes down on the ferryman and his strange companions. When the fighting is over, he explains his quest to Ur-Shanabi and asks his aid in finding Utanapishti. Ur-Shanabi reveals that Gilgamesh has hindered his own progress by smashing the stone ones, but he instructs Gilgamesh to make punting poles of immense length as an alternative means of propulsion. They embark on the boat with the poles. When the poles are all gone, Gilgamesh uses the ferryman's garment to make a sail, and they cross the waters of death. Having landed, Gilgamesh tells the story to Utanapishti. Utanapishti reminds him of the duties of kings and discourses on the inevitability of death and the fleeting nature of life. Shiduri was a tavern keeper who lived by the seashore. There she dwelt, in and in by the seashore. Post stands she had, and vats all of gold. She was swathed in hoods and veiled with veils. Gilgamesh came wandering. He was clad in a pelt, and fearful to look on. The flesh of the gods he had in his body, but in his heart there was sorrow. His face resembled one come from afar. As the tavern keeper watched him in the distance, talking to herself, she spoke a word, taking counsel in her own mind. For sure this man is a hunter of wild bulls, but where does he come from, making straight for my gate? And thus the tavern keeper saw him and barred her gate, and went up on the roof. But Gilgamesh gave ear to. He lifted his chin and turned towards her. Said Gilgamesh to her, to the tavern keeper. Tavern keeper, why did you bar your gate as soon as you saw me? You barred your gate and went up on the roof. I shall smash down the door. I shall shatter the bolts. And said the tavern keeper to him, to Gilgamesh. I barred my gate. I went up on the roof. Let me learn of your journey. Said Gilgamesh to her, to the tavern keeper. My friend Enkidu and I, having joined forces, we climbed to the mountains, seized and slew the bull of heaven, destroyed Humbaba, who dwelt in the forest of cedar, killed lions in the mountain passes. Said the tavern keeper to him, to Gilgamesh. If you and Enkidu were the ones who slew the guardian, destroyed Humbaba, who dwelt in the forest of cedar, killed lions in the mountain passes, seized and slew the bull come down from heaven, why are your cheeks so hollow, your face so sunken, your mood so wretched, your visage so wasted? Why in your heart does sorrow reside, and your face resemble one come from afar? Why are your features burnt by frost and by sunshine? And why do you wander the wild in lion's garb? Said Gilgamesh to her, to the tavern keeper. Why should my cheeks not be hollow, my face not sunken, my mood not wretched, my visage not wasted? Should not sorrow reside in my heart, and my face not resemble one come from afar? Should not my features be burnt by frost and by sunshine? And should I not wander the wild in lion's garb? My friend, a wild ass on the run, donkey of the uplands, panther of the wild. My friend Enkidu, a wild ass on the run, donkey of the uplands, panther of the wild. My friend whom I loved so dear, who with me went through every danger. My friend Enkidu, whom I loved so dear, who with me went through every danger. The doom of mortals overtook him. 6 days I wept for him, and 7 nights. I did not surrender his body for burial until a maggot dropped from his nostril. Then I was afraid that I too would die. I grew fearful of death, and so wandered the wild. What became of my friend was too much to bear. So on a far road I wandered the wild. What became of my friend Enkidu was too much to bear. So on a far path, I wander the wild. How can I keep silent? How can I stay quiet? My friend whom I loved has turned to clay. My friend Enkidu, whom I loved, has turned to clay. Shall I not be like him and also lie down, never to rise again, through all eternity? Said Gilgamesh to her, to the tavern keeper. Now, O tavern keeper, where is the road to Uttanapishti? What is its landmark? Tell me. Give me its landmark. If it may be done, I will cross the ocean. If it may not be done, I will wander the wild. Said the tavern keeper to him, to Gilgamesh. O Gilgamesh, there never has been a way across, nor since olden days can anyone cross the ocean. Only Shamash the hero crosses the ocean. Apart from the sun god, who crosses the ocean? The crossing is perilous, its way full of hazard, and midway lie the waters of death, blocking the passage forward. So besides, Gilgamesh, once you have crossed the ocean, when you reach the waters of death, what then will you do? Gilgamesh, there is Ur-Shanibi, the boatman of Uttanapishti, and the stone ones are with him, as he picks a pine clean in the midst of the forest. Go then, let him see your face. If it may be done, go across with him. If it may not be done, turn around and go back. Gilgamesh heard these words. He took up his axe in his hand. He drew forth the dirk from his belt. Forward he crept, and on them rushed down. Like an arrow he fell among them. In the midst of the forest his shout resounded. Ur-Shanabi saw the bright. He took up an axe, and him. But he, Gilgamesh, struck his head. He seized his arm and pinned him down. They took fright, the stone ones who crewed the boat, who were not harmed by the waters of death. The wide ocean, at the waters, he stayed not his hand. He smashed them in his fury, he threw them in the river. What happens next is best preserved in the old Babylonian tablet reportedly from Sippar. He came back to stand over him as Ur-Shanabi looked him in the eye. Said Ur-Shanabi to him, to Gilgamesh, Tell me, what is your name? I am Ur-Shanabi of Uttanapishti the distant. Said Gilgamesh to him, to Ur-Shanabi, Gilgamesh is my name, who came from Uruk-Warka, who wound away around the mountains, the hidden road where rises the sun. The text of Tablet 10 resumes. Said Ur-Shanabi to him, to Gilgamesh, Why are your cheeks so hollow, your face so sunken, your mood so wretched, your visage so wasted? Why in your heart does sorrow reside, and your face resemble one come from afar? Why are your features burnt by frost and by sunshine? And why do you wander the wild in lion's garb? Said Gilgamesh to him, to the boatman Ur-Shanabi, Why should my cheeks not be hollow, my face not sunken, my mood not wretched, my visage not wasted? Should not sorrow reside in my heart, and my face not resemble one come from afar? Should not my features be burnt by frost and by sunshine, and should I not wander the wild in lion's garb? My friend, a wild ass on the run, donkey of the uplands, panther of the wild, my friend Enkidu, a wild ass on the run, donkey of the uplands, panther of the wild. Having joined forces, we climbed the mountains, seized and slew the bull of heaven, destroyed Humbaba, who dwelt in the forest of cedar, killed lions in the mountain passes. My friend whom I love so dear, who with me went through every danger, my friend Enkidu, whom I loved so dear, who with me went through every danger, the doom of mortals overtook him. 6 days I wept for him, and 7 nights. I did not surrender his body for burial until a maggot dropped from his nostril. Then I was afraid that I too would die. I grew fearful of death, so wandered the wild. What became of my friend was too much to bear, so on a far road I wandered the wild. What became of my friend Enkidu was too much to bear, so on a far path I wander the wild. How can I keep silent? How can I stay quiet? My friend, whom I loved, has turned to clay. My friend Enkidu, whom I loved, has turned to clay. Shall I not be like him and also lie down, never to rise again through all eternity? Said Gilgamesh to him, to Ur-Shanabi, the boatman. Now, Ur-Shanabi, where is the road to Utanapishti? What is its landmark? Tell me. Give me its landmark. If it may be done, I will cross the ocean. If it may not be done, I will wander the wild. Said Ur-Shanabi to him, to Gilgamesh, your own hands, O Gilgamesh, has prevented your crossing. You smashed the stone ones, threw them in the river. The stone ones are smashed, and the pine is not stripped. Take up, O Gilgamesh, your axe in your hand. Go down to the forest and cut 300 punting poles, each 5 rods in length. Trim them and furnish them each with a boss. Then bring them here into my presence. Gilgamesh heard these words. He took up his axe in his hand. He drew forth the dirk from his belt. He went down to the forest and cut 300 punting poles, each 5 rods in length. He trimmed them and furnished them each with a boss. Then he brought them to Ur-Shanabi, the boatman. Gilgamesh and Ur-Shanabi crewed the boat. They launched the craft and crewed it themselves. In 3 days, they made a journey of a month and a half, and Ur-Shanabi came to the waters of death. Said Ur-Shanabi to him, to Gilgamesh, set to, O Gilgamesh. Take the first punting pole. Let your hand not touch the waters of death, lest you wither it. Take a second punting pole, Gilgamesh, a third and a fourth. Take a 5th punting pole, Gilgamesh, a 6th and a 7th. Take an 8th punting pole, Gilgamesh, a 9th and a 10th. Take an 11th punting pole, Gilgamesh, and a 12th. At 120 double furlongs, Gilgamesh had used all the punting poles. So he, Ur-Shanabi, undid his clothing. Gilgamesh stripped off his garment. With arms held aloft, he made a yard arm. Utanapishti was watching Gilgamesh in the distance. Talking to himself, he spoke a word, taking counsel in his own mind. Why are the boats, stone ones, all broken, and aboard it one who is not its master? He who comes is no man of mine, but on the right I am looking, but he is no man of mine. He is not mine. The boatman, the man who? Gilgamesh drew near to the quayside. Said Gilgamesh to him, to Utanapishti, Utanapishti, who after the deluge. What? Said Utanapishti to him, to Gilgamesh. Why are your cheeks so hollow, your face so sunken, your mood so wretched, your visage so wasted? Why in your heart does sorrow reside, and your face resemble one come from afar? Why are your features burnt by frost and by sunshine, and why do you wander the wild in lion's garb? Said Gilgamesh to him, to Utanapishti, why should my cheeks not be hollow, my face not sunken, my mood not wretched, my visage not wasted? Should not sorrow reside in my heart, and my face not resemble one come from afar? Should not my features be burnt by frost and by sunshine, and should I not wander the wild in lion's garb? My friend, a wild ass on the run, donkey of the uplands, panther of the wild, my friend Enkidu, a wild ass on the run, Donkey of the uplands, panther of the wild. Having joined forces, we climbed the mountains, seized and slew the bull of heaven, destroyed Humbaba, who dwelt in the forest of cedar, killed lions in the mountain passes. My friend, whom I loved so dear, who with me went through every danger. My friend Enkidu, whom I loved so dear, who with me went through every danger. The doom of mortals overtook him. 6 days I wept for him and 7 nights. I did not surrender his body for burial until a maggot dropped from his nostril. Then I was afraid that I too would die. I grew fearful of death, and so wandered the wild. What became of my friend Enkidu was too much to bear. So on a far path, I wander the wild. How can I keep silent? How can I stay quiet? My friend whom I loved has turned to clay. My friend Enkidu whom I loved has turned to clay. Shall I not be like him and also lie down, never rise again? Through all eternity? Said Gilgamesh to him, to Uta-Napishti, I thought, I will find Uta-Napishti, the distant of whom men tell. And I wandered journeying through every land. Many times I passed through terrible mountains. Many times I crossed and recrossed all the oceans. Of slumber sweet my face had too little. I scourged myself by going sleepless. I have filled my sinews with sorrow, and what have I achieved by my toil? I had yet to reach the tavern keeper. My clothing was worn out. I killed bear, hyena, lion, panther, cheetah, deer, ibex, the beast and the game of the wild. I ate their flesh, their pelts I flayed. Now let the gate of sorrow be barred. Let its door be sealed with tar and pitch. For my sake they shall interrupt the dancing no more. For me, happy and carefree. Said Utanapishti to him, to Gilgamesh. Why, Gilgamesh, do you ever chase sorrow? You are built from gods, flesh and human, whom the gods did fashion like your father and mother. Did you ever, Gilgamesh, compare your lot with the fool? They placed a throne in the assembly and told you, sit. The fool gets leftover yeast instead of fresh ghee, bran and grits instead of best flour. He is clad in a rag instead of the fine garments. Instead of a belt, he is girt with old rope. Because he has no advisers to guide him, his affairs lack counsel. Have thought for him, Gilgamesh. Who is their master? As many as the moon and the gods of the night. At night the moon travels. The gods stay awake and wakeful, unsleeping, from olden times is set. Now consider your support. If Gilgamesh, the temples of the gods have no provisioner, the temples of the goddesses, they, the gods, for he made, for a gift he, they will cast down. Enkidu, indeed, they took to his doom, but you toiled away, and what did you achieve? You exhaust yourself with ceaseless toil. You fill your sinews with sorrow, bringing forward the end of your days. Man is snapped off like a reed in a canebrake. The comely young men, the pretty young women, all too soon in their prime death abducts them. No one at all sees death. No one at all sees the face of death. No one at all hears the voice of death. Death so savage, who hacks men down. Ever do we build our households, ever do we make our nests. Ever do brothers divide their inheritance, ever do feuds arise in the land. Ever the river has risen and brought us the flood, the mayfly floating on the water. On the face of the sun its countenance gazes, then all of a sudden nothing is there. The abducted and the dead, how alike is their lot, but never was drawn the likeness of death. Never in the land did the dead greet a man. The Anunnaki, the great gods, held an assembly. Mamamittum, maker of destiny, fixed fates with them. Both death and life they have established, but the day of death they do not disclose. End of Tablet 10. Tablet 11. Immortality Denied. Gilgamesh asked Utanapishti how he gained eternal life, and here's how Utanapishti survived the deluge and was given immortality by the gods as a result. Utanapishti suggests Gilgamesh go without sleep for a week. Gilgamesh fails the test and realizes in despair that if he cannot beat sleep, he has no hope of conquering death. Utanapishti commands his ferryman to have Gilgamesh bathe and dress himself in more kingly garments, and to escort him back to Uruk. Utanapishti's wife counsels him to give the departing hero the customary present for his journey. Utanapishti tells Gilgamesh how, deep under the sea, a plant like coral grows that has the property of rejuvenation. Gilgamesh dives to the seabed and retrieves it. He and the Ur-Shanabi leave for Uruk, stopping at a welcoming pool. Gilgamesh bathes in its water, and a snake seizes on his inattention to steal the precious plant. Knowing that he will never rediscover the exact spot where he dived, Gilgamesh realizes at last that all his labors have been in vain. His hopes are destroyed. It would have been better not to have met Utanapishti at all. He and Ur-Shanabi arrive in Uruk, where with words that echo the prologue, Gilgamesh shows the ferryman the walls that will be his enduring monument. Said Gilgamesh to him, to Utanapishti the distant, I look at you, Utanapishti. Your form is no different. You are just like me. You are not any different. You are just like me. I was fully intent on making you fight, but now in your presence my hand is stayed. How was it you stood with the gods in assembly? How did you find the life eternal? Said Utanapishti to him, to Gilgamesh, let me disclose, O Gilgamesh, a matter most secret. To you I will tell a mystery of gods. The town of Shuruppak, a city well known to you, which stands on the banks of the river Euphrates. This city was old. The gods once were in it, when the great gods decided to send down the deluge. Their father Anu swore on oath, and their counselor, the hero Enlil, their chamberlain, the god Ninurta, and their sheriff, the god Ennugi. Princely Ea swore with them also, repeating their words to a fence made of reed. O fence of reed, O wall of brick, hear this, O fence, pay heed, O wall. O men of Shuruppak, son of Ubartutu, demolish the house and build a boat. Abandon wealth and seek survival. Spurn property, save life. Take on board the boat all living things' seed. The boat you will build, her dimensions all shall be equal. Her length and breadth shall be the same. Cover her with a roof like the ocean below. I understood, and spoke to Ea, my master. I obey, O master. What thus you told me, I understood, and I shall do it. But how do I answer my city, the crowd, and the elders? He opened his mouth to speak, saying to me, his servant, also you will say them this. For sure the god Enlil feels for me hatred. In your city I can live no longer. I can tread no more on Enlil's ground. I must go to the ocean below to live with Ea, my master, and he will send you a rain of plenty. An abundance of birds, a profusion of fishes. He will provide a harvest of riches. In the morning he will send you a shower of bread cakes, and in the evening a torrent of wheat. At the very first glimmer of brightening dawn, at the gate of Atrahasis assembled the land, the carpenter carrying his hatchet, the reed worker carrying his stone, the shipwright bearing his heavyweight axe. The young men were the old men bearing ropes of palm fiber, the rich man was carrying the pitch, the poor man brought the tackle. By the 5th day I had set her hull in position. 1 acre was her area, 10 rods the height of her sides. At 10 rods also the sides of her roof were each the same length. I set in place her body. I drew up her design. 6 decks I gave her, dividing her thus into 7. Into 9 compartments I divided her interior. I struck the bilge plugs into her middle. I saw to the punting poles and put in the tackle. 3 myriad measures of pitch I poured in a furnace. 3 myriad of tar I within. 3 myriad of oil fetched the workforce of porters. Aside from the myriad of oil consumed in libations, there were 2 myriad of oil stowed away by the boatmen. For my workmen I butchered oxen, and lambs I slaughtered daily. Beer and ale, oil and wine, like water from a river, I gave my workforce, so they enjoyed a feast like the days of New Year. At sunrise, I set my hand to the oiling. Before the sun set, the boat was complete. Were very arduous. From back to front, we moved poles for the slipway, until 2/3 of the boat had entered the water. Everything I owned, I loaded aboard. All the silver I owned, I loaded aboard. All the gold I owned, I loaded aboard. All the living creatures I had, I loaded aboard. I sent on board all my kith and kin, the beasts of the field, the creatures of the wild, and members of every skill and craft. The time which the sun god appointed. In the morning he will send you a shower of bread cakes, and in the evening a torrent of wheat. Go into the boat and seal your hatch. That time had now come. In the morning he will send you a shower of bread cakes, and in the evening a torrent of wheat. I examined the look of the weather. The weather to look at was full of foreboding. I went into the boat and sealed my hatch. To the one who sealed the boat, Puzur Enlil, the shipwright, I gave my palace with all its goods. At the very first glimmer of brightening dawn, there rose on the horizon a dark cloud of black, and bellowing within it was Adad the storm god. The gods Shulat and Hanish were going before him, bearing his throne over mountain and land. The god Erakal was uprooting the mooring poles. Ninurta, passing by, made the weirs overflow. The Anunnaki gods carried torches of fire, scorching the country with brilliant flashes. The stillness of the storm god passed over the sky, and all that was bright then turned into darkness. He charged the land like a bull on the rampage. He smashed it in pieces like a vessel of clay. For a day the gale winds flattened the country. Quickly they blew, and then came the deluge. Like a battle, the cataclysm passed over the people. One man could not discern another, nor could people be recognized amid the destruction. Even the gods took fright at the deluge. They left and went up to the heaven of Anu, lying like dogs curled up in the open. The goddess cried out like a woman in childbirth. Beladili wailed, whose voice is so sweet. The olden times have turned to clay, because I spoke evil in the gods' assembly. How could I speak evil in the gods' assembly and declare a war to destroy my people? It is I who give birth. These people are mine, and now like fish they fill the ocean. The Anunnaki gods were weeping with her, wet-faced with sorrow. They were weeping with her. Their lips were parched and stricken with fever. For 6 days and 7 nights, there blew the wind, the downpour, the gale, the deluge. It flattened the land. But the 7th day when it came, the gale relented, the deluge ended. The ocean grew calm, that had thrashed like a woman in labor. The tempest grew still. The deluge ended. I looked at the weather. It was quiet and still, but all the people had turned to clay. The floodplain was flat like the roof of a house. I opened a vent. On my cheeks fell the sunlight. Down sat I knelt and I wept. Down my cheeks the tears were coursing. I scanned the horizons, the edge of the ocean. In 14 places there rose an island. On the mountain of Nimush the boat ran aground. Mount Nimush held the boat fast, allowed it no motion. 1 day and a second, Mount Nimush held the boat fast, allowed it no motion. A third and a fourth, Mount Nimush held the boat fast, allowed it no motion. A 5th day and a 6th, Mount Nimush held the boat fast, allowed it no motion. The 7th day when it came, I brought out a dove, I let it loose. Off went the dove, but then it returned. There was no place to land, so back it came to me. I brought out a swallow, I let it loose. Off went the swallow, but then it returned. There was no place to land, so back it came to me. I brought out a raven, I let it loose. Off went the raven. It saw the waters receding, finding food, bowing and bobbing. It did not come back to me. I brought out an offering, to the 4 winds made sacrifice. Incense I placed on the peak of the mountain. 7 flasks and 7 I set in position. Reed, cedar, and myrtle I piled beneath them. The gods did smell the savor, the gods did smell the savor sweet. The gods gathered like flies around the man making sacrifice. Then at once Beledili arrived. She lifted the flies of lapis lazuli that Anu had made for their courtship. O gods, let these great beads in this necklace of mine make me remember these days and never forget them. All the gods shall come to the incense, but to the incense let Elil not come, because he lacked counsel and brought on the deluge and delivered my people into destruction. Then at once Enlil arrived. He saw the boat. He was seized with anger, filled with rage at the divine Igigi. From where escaped this living being? No man was meant to survive the destruction. Ninurta opened his mouth to speak, saying to the hero Enlil, "Who, if not Ea, could cause such a thing? Ea alone knows how all things are done." Ea opened his mouth to speak, saying to the hero Enlil, "You, the sage of the gods, the hero, how could you lack counsel and bring on the deluge? On him who transgresses, inflict his crime. On him who does wrong, inflict his wrongdoing. Slack off, lest it snap. Pull tight, lest it slacken. Instead of your causing the deluge, a lion could have risen and diminished the people. Instead of your causing the deluge, a wolf could have risen and diminished the people. Instead of your causing the deluge, a famine could have happened and slaughtered the land. Instead of your causing the deluge, the plague god could have risen and slaughtered the land. It was not I disclosed the great god's secret. Atrahasis I let see a vision, and thus he learned our secret. And now decide what to do with him." And Leo came up inside the boat. He took hold of my hand and brought me on board. He brought aboard my wife and made her kneel at my side. He touched our foreheads, standing between us to bless us. In the past, Utanapishti was a mortal man, but now he and his wife shall become like us gods. Utanapishti shall dwell far away where the rivers flow forth. So far away they took me and settled me where the rivers flow forth. But you now, who convened for you the gods' assembly, so you can find the life you search for? For 6 days and 7 nights, come, do without slumber. As soon as Gilgamesh squatted down on his haunches, sleep like a fog already breathed over him. Said Utanapishti to her, to his wife, "See the fellow who so desired life. Sleep like a fog already breathes over him. Said his wife to him, to Uta-Napishti, the distant, touch the man and make him awake. The way he came he shall go back in well-being. By the gate he came forth he shall return to his land. Said Uta-Napishti to her, to his wife, man is deceitful, he will deceive you. Go, bake for him his daily bread loaf, and line them up by his head, and mark on the wall the days that he sleeps. So she baked for him his daily bread loaf, she lined them up by his head, noting on the wall the days that he slept. His first bread loaf was all dried up, the second was leathery, soggy, the third. The fourth flour cake had turned to white, the fifth had cast a mold of gray. Fresh baked was the sixth, the seventh still on the coals. Then he touched him, and the man awoke. Said Gilgamesh to him, to Uta-Napishti the distant, no sooner had sleep spilled itself over me, than forthwith you touched me and made me awake. Said Uta-Napishti to him, to Gilgamesh, come, Gilgamesh, count me your bread loaves, then you will learn the days that you slept. Your first bread loaf was all dried up, the second was leathery, soggy the third, the fourth flour cake had turned to white, the fifth had a cast of mold of gray, fresh baked was the sixth, the seventh still on the coals. And only then did I touch you. Said Gilgamesh to him, to Uta-Napishti the distant, oh, Uta-Napishti, what should I do and where should I go? A thief has taken hold of my flesh, for there in my bedchamber death does abide, and wherever I turn, there too will be death. Said Uta-Napishti to him, to the boatman Ur-Shanabi, may the quay reject you, Ur-Shanabi, and the ferry scorn you. You who used to walk this shore, be banished from it now. As for the man that you led here, his body is tousled with matted hair. The pelts have ruined his body's beauty. Take him, Ur-Shanabi, lead him to the washtub. Have him wash his matted locks as clean as can be. Let him cast off his pelts, and the sea bear them off. Let his body be soaked till fair. Let a new kerchief be made for his head. Let him wear royal robes, the dress fitting his dignity. Until he goes home to his city, until he reaches the end of his road, let the robes show no mark, but stay fresh and new. Ur-Shanabi took him and led him to the washtub. He washed his matted locks as clean as could be. He cast off his pelts, and the sea bore them off. His body was soaked till fair. He made a new kerchief for his head. He wore royal robes, the dress fitting his dignity. Until he goes home to his city, until he reaches the end of his road, let the robes show no mark, but stay fresh and new. Gilgamesh and Ur-Shanabi crewed the boat. They launched the craft and crewed it themselves. Said his wife to him, to Uta-Napishti the distant, Gilgamesh came here by toil and by travail. What have you given for his homeward journey? And Gilgamesh, he picked up a punting pole. He brought the boat back near to the shore. Said Uta-Napishti to him, to Gilgamesh, you came here, O Gilgamesh, by toil and by travail. What do I give for you homeward journey? Let me disclose, O Gilgamesh, a matter most secret. To you I will tell a mystery of gods. There is a plant that looks like a box thorn. It has prickles like a dog rose, and will prick one who plucks it. But if you can possess this plant, you'll be again as you were in your youth. And just as soon as Gilgamesh heard what he said, he opened a channel. Heavy stones he tied to his feet, and they pulled him down to the ocean below. He took the plant and pulled it up and lifted it. The heavy stones he cut loose from his feet, and the sea cast him up on its shore. Said Gilgamesh to him, to Ur-Shanabi the boatman, "This plant, Ur-Shanabi, is the plant of heartbeat. With it a man can regain his vigor. To Uruk the sheepfold I will take it. To an ancient I will feed some and put the plant to the test. Its name shall be Old Man Grown Young. I will eat it myself and be again as I was in my youth." At 20 leagues they broke bread. At 30 leagues they stopped for the night. Gilgamesh found a pool whose water was cool. Down he went into it to bathe in the water. Of the plant's fragrance a snake caught scent, came up in silence, and bore the plant off. As it turned away it sloughed its skin. Then Gilgamesh sat down and wept. Down his cheeks the tears were coursing. He spoke to Ur-Shanabi the boatman. "For whom, Ur-Shanabi, toiled my arms so hard? For whom ran dry the blood of my heart? Not for myself did I find a bounty. For the lion of the earth I have done a favor. Now far and wide the tide is rising. Having opened the channel, I abandoned the tools. What thing would I find that served as my landmark? Had I only turned back and left the boat on the shore?" At 20 leagues they broke bread. At 30 leagues they stopped for the night. When they arrived in Uruk the sheepfold, said Gilgamesh to him, to Ur-Shanabi the boatman, "O Ur-Shanabi, climb Uruk's wall and walk back and forth. Survey its foundations, examine the brickwork. Were its bricks not fired in an oven? Did the 7 sages not lay its foundations? A square mile is city, a square mile date grove, a square mile is clay pit, half a square mile the temple of Ishtar, 3 square miles and a half is Uruk's expanse." End of Tablet 11. Tablet 12. The following is a comment by the translator Andrew George. The last tablet in the series of Gilgamesh, Tablet 12, is not part of the epic at all, but an Akkadian translation of the latter part of the Sumerian poem of Gilgamesh and the Netherworld. It was appended to the epic presumably because of the relevance of the material. It describes conditions in the Netherworld, where after his death, Gilgamesh presided over the shades of the dead. Gilgamesh and the Netherworld. In those days, in those far-off days. In those days, in those far-off days. In those nights, in those distant nights. In those years, in those far-off years. In olden times, after what was needed had become manifest. In olden times, after what was needed had been taken care of. After bread had been swallowed in the sanctuaries of the land. After the ovens of the land had been fired up with bellows. After heaven had been parted from earth. After earth had been separated from heaven. After the name of mankind had been established. Then, after the god An had taken the heavens for himself, after the god Enlil had taken the earth for himself, and after he had presented the netherworld to the goddess Ereshkigal as a dowry gift, after he had set sail, after the Father had set sail for the netherworld, after the god Enki had set sail for the netherworld. On the Lord the small ones poured down, on Enki the big ones poured down. The small ones were hailstones the size of a hand. The big ones were hailstones that made the reeds jump. Into the lap of Enki's boat they poured in a heap like a surging turtle. At the Lord the water at the front of the boat snapped all around like a wolf. At Enki the water at the back of the boat flailed like a murderous lion. At that time there was a solitary tree, a solitary willow, a solitary tree, growing on the bank of the holy Euphrates, drinking water from the river Euphrates. The might of the south wind tore it out at the roots and snapped off its branches. The water of the Euphrates washed over it. The woman who respects the word of On, who respects the word of Enlil, picked up the tree in her hand and took it into Uruk, took it into the pure garden of Inanna. The woman did not plant the tree with her hand, she planted it with her foot. The woman did not water the tree with her hand, she watered it with her foot. She said, "How long until I sit on a pure throne?" She said, "How long until I lie on a pure bed?" After 5 years had gone by, after 10 years had gone by, the tree had grown stout, its bark had no split. In its base, a snake that knows no charm had made its nest. In its branches, a thunderbird had hatched its brood. In its trunk, a demon maid had built her home. The maiden who laughs with happy heart, holy Inanna, was weeping. Day was dawning, the horizon brightening. Birds were singing in chorus to the dawn, as the sun god came forth from his chamber, and his sister, the holy Inanna, spoke to young hero Utu. "O brother, in those days after destinies were determined, when the land flowed with abundance, when On had made off with the heavens, and Leal had made off with the earth, and he had given the netherworld to Ereshkigal as a dowry gift, after he had set sail, after the father had set sail for the netherworld, after Enki had set sail for the netherworld, on the Lord the small ones poured down, on Enki the big ones poured down. The small ones were hailstones the size of a hand, the big ones were hailstones that made the reeds jump. Into the lap of Enki's boat they poured in a heap like a surging turtle. At the Lord the water at the front of the boat snapped all around like a wolf. At Enki the water at the back of the boat flailed like a murderous lion. At that time there was a solitary tree, a solitary willow, a solitary tree, growing on the bank of the holy Euphrates, drinking water from the river Euphrates. The might of the south wind tore it out at the roots and snapped off its branches. The water of the Euphrates washed over it. I, the woman who respects the word of On, I, who respect the word of Enlil, I picked up the tree in my hand and took it into Uruk, took it into the pure garden of Inanna. I, the woman, did not plant the tree with my hand, I planted it with my foot. I, Inanna, did not water the tree with my hand, I watered it with my foot. I said, "How long until I sit on a pure throne?" I said, "How long until I lie on a pure bed?" After 5 years had gone by, after 10 years had gone by, the tree had grown stout, its bark had no split. In its base, a snake that knows no charm had made its nest. In its branches, a thunderbird had hatched its brood. In its trunk, a demon maiden had built her home. The maiden who laughs with a happy heart, holy Inanna, was weeping. Her brother, young hero Utu, did not help her in this matter. Day was dawning, the horizon brightening. Birds were singing in chorus to the dawn. As the sun god came forth from his chamber, and his sister, the holy Inanna, spoke to the warrior Gilgamesh. O brother, in those days, after destinies were determined, when the land flowed with abundance, when An had made off with the heavens, and Leel had made off with the earth, and he had given the netherworld to Ereshkigal as a dowry gift. After he had set sail, after the father had set sail for the netherworld, after Anki had set sail for the netherworld. On the Lord the small ones poured down, on Anki the big ones poured down. The small ones were hailstones the size of a hand. The big ones were hailstones that made the reeds jump. Into the lap of Anki's boat they poured in a heap like a surging turtle. At the Lord, the water at the front of the boat snapped all around like a wolf. At Enki, the water at the back of the boat flailed like a murderous lion. At that time there was a solitary tree, a solitary willow, a solitary tree, growing on the bank of the holy Euphrates, drinking water from the river Euphrates. The might of the southwind tore it out at the roots and snapped off its branches. The water of the Euphrates washed over it. I, the woman who respects the word of An, I who respect the word of Enlil, I picked up the tree in my hand and took it into Uruk, took it into the pure garden of Inanna. I, the woman, did not plant the tree with my hand. I planted it with my foot. I, Inanna, did not water the tree with my hand. I watered it with my foot. I said, "How long until I sit on a pure throne?" I said, "How long until I lie on a pure bed?" After 5 years had gone by, after 10 years had gone by, the tree had grown stout, its bark had not split. In its base, a snake that knows no charm had made its nest. In its branches, a thunderbird had hatched its brood. In its trunk, a demon maiden had built her home. The maiden who laughs with happy heart, holy Inanna, was weeping. His sister, having spoken thus to him, her brother Gilgamesh helped her in this matter. He girt his loins with a kilt of 50 minas, treating 50 minas like 30 shekels, his bronze axe for expeditions, the one of 7 talents and 7 minas, he took up in his hand. In its base, the snake that knows no charm, he smote. In its branches, the thunderbird gathered up its brood and went into the mountains. In its trunk, the demon maiden abandoned her home and fled to the wastelands. As for the tree, he tore it out of the roots and snapped off its branches. The sons of his city who had come with him lopped off its branches, lashed them together. To his sister, holy Inanna, he gave wood for her throne. He gave wood for her bed. For himself, its base he made into his ball, its branch he made into his mallet. Playing with the ball, he took it out into the city square. He took it out into the city square. The young men of his city began playing with the ball. With him mounted piggyback on a band of widows' sons. "Oh, my neck, oh, my hips," he groaned. The son who had a mother, she brought him bread. The brother who had a sister, she poured him water. When evening was approaching, he drew a mark where his ball had been placed. He lifted it up before him and carried it off to his house. At dawn, where he had made the mark, he mounted piggyback, but at the complaint of the widows and the outcry of the young girls, his ball and his mallet both fell down to the bottom of the netherworld. With he could not reach it. He used his hand, but he could not reach it. He used his foot, but he could not reach it. At the gate of Ganzer, the entrance to the netherworld, he took a seat. Raked with sobs, Gilgamesh began to weep. "O my ball, O my mallet, O my ball, which I have not enjoyed to the full, O my, with which I have not had my fill of play. On this day only my ball had stayed for me in the carpenter's workshop. O carpenter's wife, like a mother to me, if only it had stayed there. O carpenter's daughter, like a little sister to me, if only it had stayed there. My ball has fallen down to the netherworld. Who will bring it up for me? My mallet has fallen down to Ganzer. Who will bring it up for me?" His servant Enkidu answered him, "My lord, why are you weeping? Why are you sick at heart? This day I myself will bring your ball up for you from the netherworld. I myself will bring your mallet up for you from Ganzer." Gilgamesh spoke to Enkidu. "If this day you are going down to the netherworld, I will give you instructions. You should follow my instructions. I will tell you a word. Give ear to my word. Do not dress in a clean garment. They would surely take it as the sign of a stranger. Do not anoint yourself in sweet oil from the flask. At the scent of it they will surely surround you. Do not hurl a throw stick in the netherworld. Those struck by the throw stick will surely surround you. Do not hold a cornel rod in your hand. The shades will tremble before you. Do not wear sandals on your feet. It will surely make the netherworld shake. Do not kiss the wife you loved. Do not strike the wife you hated. Do not kiss the son you loved. Do not strike the son you hated. The outcry of the netherworld will seize you. To the one who lies, the one who lies. To the mother of Ninatsu who lies. No garment covers her shining shoulders. No linen is spread over her shining breast. Her fingernails she wields like a rake. She wrenches her hair out like leeks. Enkidu paid no attention to the word of his master. He dressed in a clean garment. They took it in as a sign of a stranger. He anointed himself in sweet oil from the flask. At the scent of it they surrounded him. He hurled a throw stick in the netherworld. Those struck by the throw stick surrounded him. He held a cornel rod in his hand. The shades did tremble before him. He wore sandals on his feet. It made the netherworld shake. He kissed the wife he loved. He struck the wife he hated. He kissed the son he loved. He struck the son he hated. The outcry of the netherworld seized him. To the one who lies, the one who lies. To the mother of Ninatsu who lies. No garment covered her shining shoulders. No linen was spread over her shining breast. Her fingernails she wielded like a rake. She was wrenching her hair out like leeks. From that wicked day to the 7th day thence, from the netherworld his servant Enkidu came not forth. The king uttered a wail and wept bitter tears. My favorite servant, my steadfast companion, the one who counseled me, the netherworld seized him. Namtar did not seize him. Azog did not seize him. The netherworld seized him. Nergal's pitiless sheriff did not seize him. The netherworld seized him. He did not fall in battle, the field of men. The netherworld seized him. The warrior Gilgamesh, son of the goddess and sun, made his way alone to Akur, the house of Enlil. Before the god Enlil he wept. O Father Enlil, my ball fell into the netherworld, my mallet fell into Ganzir. Enkidu went to bring it up, and the netherworld seized him. My favorite servant, my steadfast companion, the one who counseled me, the netherworld seized him. Namtar did not seize him, Azog did not seize him, the netherworld seized him. Nergal's pitiless sheriff did not seize him, the netherworld seized him. He did not fall in battle, the field of men, the netherworld seized him. Father Enlil did not help him in this matter. He went to He made his way alone to the house of Inanna. Before the god Inanna he wept. O Father Inanna, my ball fell into the netherworld, my mallet fell into the Ganzir. Enkidu went to bring it up, and the netherworld seized him. Namtar did not seize him, Azog did not seize him, the netherworld seized him. Nergal's pitiless sheriff did not seize him, the netherworld seized him. He did not fall in battle, the field of men, the netherworld seized him. Father Inanna did not help him in this matter. He went to Eridu. He made his way alone to Eridu, the house of Enki. Before the god Enki he wept. O Father Enki, my ball fell into the netherworld, my mallet fell into Ganzir. Enkidu went to bring it up, and the netherworld seized him. My favorite servant, my steadfast companion, the one who counseled me, the netherworld seized him. Namtar did not seize him, Azog did not seize him, the netherworld seized him. Nergal's pitiless sheriff did not seize him, the netherworld seized him. He did not fall in battle, the field of men, the netherworld seized him. Father Enki helped him in this matter. He spoke to young hero Utu, the son-born of Ningal. Now, when, as the sun god, you make an opening in the netherworld, bring his servant up to him from the netherworld. He made an opening in the netherworld. By means of his phantom, he brought his servant up to him from the netherworld. He hugged him tight and kissed him. In asking and answering, they made themselves wary. Did you see the way things are ordered in the netherworld? If only you could tell me, my friend, if only you could tell me. If I am to tell you the way things are ordered in the netherworld, oh, sit you down and weep. Then let me sit down and weep. The one whom you touched with joy in your heart, he says, I am going to ruin. Like an old garment, he is infested with lice. Like a crack in the floor, he is filled with dust. Ah, woe, cried the Lord, and he sat down in the dust. Did you see the man with one son? I saw him. How does he fare? For the peg built into his wall, bitterly he laments. Did you see the man with two sons? I saw him. How does he fare? Seated on 2 bricks, he eats a bread loaf. Did you see the man with 3 sons? I saw him. How does he fare? He drinks water from the water skin slung on the saddle. Did you see the man with 4 sons? I saw him. How does he fare? Like a man with a team of 4 donkeys, his heart rejoices. Did you see the man with 5 sons? I saw him. How does he fare? Like a fine scribe with a nimble hand, he enters the palace with ease. Did you see the man with 6 sons? I saw him. How does he fare? Like a man with plows in harness, his heart rejoices. Did you see the man with 7 sons? I saw him. How does he fare? Among the junior deities, he sits on a throne and listens to the proceedings. Did you see the man with no hair? I saw him. How does he fare? He eats a bread loaf like a kiln-fired brick. Did you see the palace eunuch? I saw him. How does he fare? Like a useless alala stick, he is propped in a corner. Did you see the woman who had not given birth? I saw her. How does she fare? Like a defective pot, she is cast aside. No man takes pleasure in her. Did you see the young man who had not bared the lap of his wife? I saw him. How does he fare? You have him finish a hand-worked rope. He weeps over it. Did you see the young woman who had not bared the lap of her husband? I saw her. How does she fare? You have her finish a hand-worked reed mat. She weeps over it. Did you see the leper? I saw him. How does he fare? His food is set apart. His drink is set apart. He eats uprooted grass. He roots for water in the ground. He lives outside the city. Did you see the man afflicted with pellagra? I saw him. How does he fare? He twitches like an ox as the maggots consume him. Did you see the man eaten by a lion? I saw him. How does he fare? Bitterly he cries, "Oh, my hand, oh, my foot." Did you see the person who fell from a roof? I saw him. How does he fare? They cannot repair his bones. He twitches like an ox as the maggots consume him. Did you see the man whom the storm god drowned in a flood? I saw him. How does he fare? He twitches like an ox as the maggots consume him. Did you see the man who did not respect the word of his mother and father? I saw him. How does he fare? He drinks water weighed out in a scale. He never gets enough. Did you see the man accursed by his mother and father? I saw him. How does he fare? He is deprived of an heir. His ghost still roams. Did you see the man fallen in battle? I saw him. How does he fare? His father and mother cradle his head. His wife weeps. Did you see the shade of him who has no one for make funerary offerings? I saw him. How does he fare? He eats scrapings from the pot and crusts of bread thrown away in the street. Did you see the man struck by a mooring pole? I saw him. How does he fare? Let a man only say, "Oh, mother," and with rib torn out, the top part, his daily bread. Did you see the little stillborn babies who knew not names of their own? I saw them. How did they fare? They play amid syrup and ghee at tables of silver and gold. Did you see the man who died a premature death? I saw him. How does he fare? He lies on the bed of the gods. Did you see the man who was burnt to death? I did not see him. His ghost was not there. His smoke went up to the heavens. The version of the poem known at Nippur ends abruptly here. A second version, known from the provincial center of Meturan, adds 3 lines that link the text with the beginning of the poem of Gilgamesh and Huwawa. The heart was stricken, his mind despaired. The king searched for life. The Lord of the Living One's mountain did turn his mind. A third recension, known from tablets from continues the dialogue. Did you see the one who cheated a god and swore an oath? I saw him. How does he fare? He cannot get near the places in the netherworld where the libations of water are made. He drinks in thirst. Did you see the citizen of Girsu at the place of sighs of his father and mother? I saw him. How does he fare? Facing each man there are 1,000 Amorites. His shade cannot push them off with his hands. He cannot charge them down with his chest. At the places in the netherworld where the libations of water are made, the Amorite take precedence. Did you see the sons of Sumer and Akkad? I saw them. How did they fare? They drink water from the place of a massacre, dirty water. Did you see where my father and mother dwell? I saw them. How do they fare? The two of them drink water from the place of a massacre, dirty water. He sent them back to Uruk. He sent them back to his city. Gear and equipment, hatchet and spear he put away in the store. He made merry in his palace. The young men and women of Uruk, the worthies and matron of Kulab, looked upon those statues and their hearts rejoiced. He lifted his head to the sun god coming forth from his chamber. He issued instructions. O my father and my mother, I will have you drink clear water. The day was not half gone. Gilgamesh performed the morning rites. The 9 days he performed the morning rites. The young men and women of Uruk, the worthies and matrons of Kulab, wept. And it was just as he had said. The citizens of Girsu matched his actions. O my father and my mother, I will have you drink clear water. O warrior Gilgamesh, son of the goddess Ninsun, sweet is your praise. End of Tablet 12. And also this concludes the reading of the Epic of Gilgamesh. I want to say thank you for joining me on this travel in time through these beautiful ancient words. And if you haven't done so, hit that like button. If you like what you see here, share it with your friends and subscribe to the channel. Be blessed.